Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be looking back on Sale's victory over Leicester Tigers in the Gallagher Premiership yesterday. I was at Welford Road for the match. I was working. I was actually hoping to record a reaction after full time in the stands, but between everything I had to do after the game, I just didn't get round to it. So here's more of a considered reaction to what was a really big win. And as I mentioned in the thumbnail, you might have seen, big performance from Raffi Quirke off the bench as well. So I talk a little bit about him, his impact, and looking ahead to the autumn for England as well, and further afield in fact as well. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that like button, and comment down below on both of these sides. What do you make of Sale, who've been really impressive so far, and defending champions Leicester Tigers, perhaps just struggling a little bit for continuity at the moment for both of those sides? Let me know what you think. I'd really appreciate it. All right, let's get into it. So, Leicester 16, Sale 26. Significant result, this one, I think, for Sale. I'll get on to Leicester in just a moment, but let's give props, first of all, to the side that won the game in Sale and also the side that are yet to lose this season. I said in the build-up to the match yesterday that it was a real test of Sale's credentials. We've seen them get some really good wins so far this season. They won at home against Exeter last weekend, and we saw what the Chiefs did to Bristol on Friday night. So we knew that Sale were good, but this was always going to be their toughest game so far this season. Going away to Welford Road, Leicester had won their past 14 Premiership home matches. It's a place that is really difficult to go to and get a result. So I think we've learnt a lot about Sale as a result of this. And any of you who've watched some of my other videos on Sale this season, particularly when I spoke about them before the new season, I was perhaps a little bit negative about them because I felt like with Alex Sanderson, their director of rugby, he's been in charge a little bit of time now. He's had enough time to get them clicking. And I just felt that he hadn't up until this season. So I had some reservations about what he was getting out of that side. And particularly when you looked at the fact that they lost Raffi Quirke, who we know on his day is arguably the best scrum half in the world. He can make any team he's playing for tick. They lost Lou de Jager as well. They lost a little bit of that muscle up front. That I had a little bit of concern about Sale Sharks and whether they would really be able to kick on and achieve perhaps what, on paper at least, they promised to. But so far this season, they're looking absolutely brilliant. With that victory yesterday, they went second in the table. They're joint top, really, because they're on the same amount of points as Exeter. They're just missing out on points difference. But I think it's a statement victory from Sale Sharks, and I think I need to take back what I said before the start of the season. They're proving me wrong. They are proving the fact that they are a serious contender this year. They're a contender for the top four. And I think as we talk now, and it's really early in the season, things can change. Injuries will have an impact. When sides lose players for the internationals, that always has an impact. But sitting here today, what are we? Midway through the 5th round of the Premiership. Sale Sharks are absolutely worthy of being talked about as contenders to win a title this year. Long way to go, I know, but I just think we have to see that, particularly after the victory against Leicester yesterday. And specifically, I'll tell you why. They were trailing at half-time, 16-12. They were kind of beating themselves a little bit in the first half. They gave away quite a few penalties, which the Tigers opted to go for the posts and were able to build a lead. They weren't playing that well, and then they kept Leicester scoreless in the second half. And that in itself is an impressive thing to do away from home. But it was also the way in which they just took the game by the scruff of the neck. There was a small period at the start of the second half where they scored 2 tries. Tom Curry scored 1 and Raffi Quirke got another, where they stretched their lead. They got themselves back into the lead. They then built on that lead, and then they were able to hold on. And defensively is the other part of this conversation, holding Leicester to just the 1 try. I like the look of what I'm seeing from Sale Sharks, and I spoke about the players they lost, the high-profile players in Raffi Quirke and Lou de Jager. Let's talk about the players they've brought in. Tom O'Flaherty and Johnny Hill, first of all, both of those from Exeter. Johnny Hill, you know what he brings in terms of maul defence and in terms of line-out. He's come straight into that pack and is making a difference. And Tom O'Flaherty, who I mentioned in a previous video, never a guy that's got an England call-up, but it would almost be worthy of one if he was to get one. He's a really good, consistent Premiership winger. He looked good again yesterday against Leicester, and he slotted in really nicely at Sale. So they've recruited well, and just as a unit, cohesively, they look far, far better this season. Sale fans, let me know what you think of your side. But first time I've seen them in the flesh yesterday, and I was really, really impressed with them. Final thing I want to mention with Sale is Raffi Quirke. Now, it's really easy in these situations to get way ahead of ourselves and big someone up far too much. And he only got 40 minutes. He came on at halftime for Gus War. He's actually done a pretty good job of in that 9 position whilst Raffi Quirke's been injured. But Raffi Quirke, the last time he played was April. He injured his hamstring against Bristol in an absolutely dreadful game up at the AJ Bell in the knockout stages of the Champions Cup. So he made his return yesterday, got 40 minutes off the bench, and he was outstanding. He just looked a completely different level. He looked a different level even to Jack Van Poortvliet, who came off the bench for Leicester. So it was kind of the 2 young English nines coming off the bench. Jack Van Poortvliet, who looked really impressive for England in the summer tour against Australia. Him and Raffi Quirke came on, and in my opinion, Raffi Quirke just looked a cut above. He looked incredibly sharp. And his first few introductions were, he made a little break and a lovely little pop pass to Tom Curry for Curry to score a try. He then got on the end of the second Sale try, which came in quick succession, and he made a try-saving tackle. So he set up a try, he scored a try, he made a try-saving tackle. And it wasn't just that. He was really good at guarding against the little chips in behind later in the game when Leicester were trying to chase it and get a score on the board. He covered that up. He looked so sharp. And we talk about the future of the England nines, and I think Ben Youngs is still going to be there for the time being. If we look at the World Cup, for an example, because that's the kind of cycle the international game is in at the moment. Eddie Jones, he took 2 scrum halves to the World Cup in Japan. He's since then suggested he is going to take 3 now. That was a mistake. It backfired on him, if you remember. They were having to call scrum halves out really late into the tournament just before the World Cup. So he's going to take 3, we believe, to France. That's going to be Ben Youngs. And then it's going to be 2, I would imagine, of Raffi Quirke, Harry Randall, Jack Van Poortvliet, Mitchell, obviously at Northampton, doesn't get too much of a look in, but in terms of form is worthy of the discussion. So I think basically we'll have one really experienced scrum half, which I think will be Ben Youngs. Danny Kerr, unfortunately, I think his England time is over. And then it's going to be one of those younger guys. In my opinion, Raffi Quirke has to be on that plane, and possibly even by the World Cup, the starting England 9. I think he's that good. If he can get a run of form, I think he's head and shoulders above the other options. And that's seeing him only, I mean, I've seen him before, but that's seeing him 40 minutes coming back from injury against a good Leicester side. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And as I say, normally I'd probably be cautious in my praise and in getting too far ahead of myself after just the 40 minutes off the bench. But you can't deny it. You can't deny the impact. You couldn't deny how good he looked. So for me, Raffi Quirke, England's long-term option at 9 moving forward. Let's move on to Leicester, because there are 2 sides to every story. And for as impressive and good a result as it is for Sale, it is a performance from Leicester which is going to be really, really worrying. They'd have been concerned after their performance the week before where they got battered by Saracens. But I said in the build-up yesterday, there's no shame in losing away to Saracens. Most teams, maybe every team, will lose away to Saracens this season. The manner of the performance was a concern, though. Leicester under Steve Borthwick don't typically lose that convincingly. And then to back it up at home against a team who are undefeated, a team they were leading against at half-time and then just completely lost control of the game in the second half, has got to be a concern for Leicester. I spoke to Steve Borthwick in interviews afterwards, and he kind of hinted towards perhaps them not having the continuity at the moment. I think you look at the fact that they've lost George Ford to Sale, by the way. George Ford, this is something I meant to mention when talking about Sale. He's still to come back for them. Imagine if Sale gets to the point where they've got a fully fit Raffi Quirke starting 9, George Ford running the game at 10, Manu Tuolangi, who's having a run of form at the start of the season, we always hope he stays fit, at 12 in the centres. You've then got the likes of Roebuck, who scored a try yesterday, O'Flaherty on the wings, Carpenter, the young guy that's come in at fullback for Sale and looks good. That potentially looks really, really good. That just reminded me by mentioning George Ford. So Leicester have lost George Ford, who runs the game. I'm not convinced Andre Pollard is going to be a replacement that lives up to that. He's had a lot of issues of injury since the 2019 World Cup. Hasn't been the same player since winning the World Cup with South Africa. And I think the likes of Gopeth coming in, and they just seem to be lacking an element of continuity, which they had last year. Something's not right for Leicester. The way in which they've conceded tries, they haven't been able to necessarily make the most of the possession they did have against Sale yesterday. Something is amiss for the Tigers. The question now is how quickly it takes to correct that. Is it just a case of time? Is it just a case of a team who achieved it all last year, had the most dramatic Premiership win you could imagine with a drop goal in the final, and naturally maybe there's going to be a drop-off after that, and maybe they're struggling and they're going to come good later down the line. You remember last year in the they lost 4 games in the Premiership last year in the regular season. They've already lost 3 this year. So they've had a big drop-off. Are they going to be able to steadily build, or are they actually in a season which is a rebuild season in themselves? Have we all misjudged Leicester and they're not going to be a top 4 team? I think it's too early to be able to conclusively say if that is the case, but Leicester Tigers fans, I'd imagine, have to be concerned. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I want to see a little bit more of Leicester before I pass judgment on them completely. But without question, there were issues in their performance yesterday and issues in their performances so far this season, which have alarm bells ringing, I think. I think there's been elements of their game which were there last year in terms of how tough they were, how hard they were to beat, how good they were defensively, just how physical they were. The continuity, as I've mentioned, but that kind of slickness, the whole team ecosystem worked for them last year. Obviously, they've lost George Ford, they've lost Ellis Genge, who's having a really good impact at Bristol. So, as I say, I'm not going to count them out of the top 4 race just yet, but they need to improve, and they need to improve quickly. Let me know in the comments down below, Sale fans and Leicester fans, what you make of your 2 teams so far this season. And also, Raffi Quirke, he surely needs to be the England number 9 moving forward if he's fit. I think he's that good. I think he's better than the other options that are currently out there. And there are a few with Van Portvliet, Harry Randall, Mitchell, as I mentioned before. But let me know in the comments. I think I'll leave it now for this week. As you can probably tell, I was enthused by the game yesterday. I loved being at Welford Road. I thought it was 2 decent sides, great atmosphere, great ground, and a good game of rugby as well, which had changes in the lead. It went up and down, and Sale ultimately got the victory. All right, look forward to hearing from you in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.